getting for new folks kind of an orientation about group and how group works as much as possible. We want to use old group members for that. In fact, we've developed some group leaders we should probably pay. Because they have become real leaders and socializers. Then you touch base with any leftover business. Like this past time was a good example of that. We had a lady who had been pretty emotional about an abusive situation that she was in and had done a lot of sharing, and the group had given her a lot of support. And the first thing everyone wanted to know naturally is how things are going, what's happened. So you check up on that kind of thing. So there's a bridge from your last group to this one. Then after that, we kind of open it up to, it's your group, this is your time, who wants to work today, who's got issues? And then we get into them, and you work, and as you work, you use the group. When we wrap up, we solicit input from the whole group. Then you either move on to another issue, or it's potluck time, because everyone comes in between 10 and 10:30. They're also taking potluck to the back of the room, because we do group 10:30 to 12:31-ish. Break for potluck for about an hour, socialize during that, get back together in the late afternoon. And we either do group, or we do family games activities, or right now we're doing parenting education at the request of the parents. Wow. This is some time where we work just with the parents and the kids are back out into their regular campus program. And we're getting some good discussion there. And it's given Becky a neat role to come into group with. So we've done a variety of things, but that's kind of the outline. They arrive, we socialize, we tie up ends from last time, we work, we eat, we work some more. We oftentimes use reflecting teams for the overall day. We'll get in there and talk about the day, and in that process, stroke things, mark things for future work, generally share our impressions. Other people then will react from outside the group to us. We're kind of in the fishbowl at that point, and go home. And Stokes has done a lot of neat little wrap-up things with we've had the whole group up arm in arm, or we've given group hugs to people who had been working. Stokes has done just an excellent job of a lot of little social things to tie the group together and keep people comfortable. I think I'm somewhat of a social barbarian and somewhat confronting at times, and it's nice to have someone who's smooth and keeps the maintenance stuff going. Stokes has done an excellent job.
He does a good job.
So what kind of things do your family say they want to work on when you get to the point of saying, what do you want to do with this group today? What do they do? Do they get quiet for a few minutes and you have some tension building and some anxiety? And
we're trying to take that away from them.
You try to sit there and be quiet.
Sit there and be quiet with it. When we find that we're talking too much or trying to pull too much, we're working too hard. And I think it's better to let the group process happen.
So it's important to know for the person who's doing multiple family therapy that they work only as hard as the group is working.
Mm-hmm.
So in your experience, what kind of things have families said? What kind of concerns have they got? What kind of things do they want to change? What do they want to work on in family group?
I remember one group a couple of months ago, a lady wanted to discuss smoking policy. And it went from there into just all kinds of things. But smoking policy is safe. Mm-hmm. As things progressed, she did a lot of real good, hard work.
I can imagine that if I was sitting in a group like that, I would be wondering what it would be like for families who have their children in a children's home. What would it be like for moms and dads and brothers and sisters or grandparents or aunts and uncles to have a child in a children's home? What would it be like for them? Do they ever share those things with you?
We often use that as a connecting point for families, especially if we have new families come in. Sometimes the way we begin group is to have those folks who have been in group before, who have kids in placement here, go out and share with new folks coming in who have just recently placed their child here. And we found that to be a real point of connection for families and a good way to, a good springboard often for group to begin.
So the old families will kind of mother hen the new families and let them know that this crisis will settle out and the chaos that's going on now will get better and they will get to the other end of the continuum and have a little bit of enlightenment
Yes.
and not be so painful. That's interesting because I used to think that families were either dysfunctional or healthy. But I think I've come to the conclusion that families are on a continuum and we vacillate between chaos and enlightenment. And I guess when these families first get here, of course they're in chaos, and as time goes on, they progressively get more enlightened until they get in chaos again.
We've really seen kind of, I guess enough times, it's almost a natural progression that the parents come in and first they connect on the level of it feels bad, it hurts to have a child out of home. You feel bad about yourself, bad about your parenting. There's a big gap there. The moms go into the bedrooms periodically during the week and they cry and there are those feelings. And they connect and get support from other moms and almost routinely, after they've shared that, the next group, then the anger is going to come on. The anger at the system, the anger at a lot of different things, sometimes the anger at us. And then after that, they've shared some of the grief, they've shared some of the anger, then they're more ready to start working. They're more connected after they've gone through that process. I think it's pretty much become almost a predictable progression that we see. And that we provide a vehicle for in that fishbowl where you get, say, all the moms out there talking together. You get the dads out there.
What do you say to them to get them talking once you get all the moms fishbowled?
Don't say anything, they do it. Please share with so-and-so what it was like when your child was in placement. And that's all it takes.
And we usually start with the moms.
Why?
They're more comfortable sharing emotion, more
Women,
apt
yes.
to show emotion.
Yeah.
And if we start with them, it sets a tone, I think, that's more likely to get more disclosure going.
They're not as contaminated as we males maybe.
If you get the dads out there, they're going to talk from here up.
Right.
But if you get the moms out there, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to get some feeling going. And we know feelings are catchy. In a group setting, the whole group catches that mood.
And you might get tears.
Oh,
What do you do with the tears?
that's a guarantee we get tears. Basically, let the group members support each other. Someone will get Kleenexes. Somebody will sit next to. Sometimes we'll have hand Kleenexes to spouses, kids, and they'll take them out too. But it's almost guaranteed during that point in time you're going to get tears. And a lot of the kids, we've also then, we put the moms in, we put the dads in, we put the kids in. You'll get tears from some of the kids at that point in time. Or they're just sitting there watching their moms talk. You'll get tears from the kids around the group. The kids are often for us, at least our experience so far, the more difficult to really get talking from in here.
Because they've got to survive on campus too.
That's
After
right.
mom and dad, or mom or parents or family leaves, they've got to go back to the cottage and survive.
They have to live in the pecking order.
Right.
They have to live with teasing and picking that may come from what they divulge. So it goes a little more slowly and a little more carefully for them than it does for the moms who are going to see each other once a month or connect on the phone in between.
Of course, they're not living at home either, and so they see mom or families doing this stuff, and they still got a bit of skepticism about them,
Yeah.
wondering, is this something that's real or is it fake? How is it going to affect me? What does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
Have you got males and females, children who live on campus in the same group?
Yes.
Yes. What's the transition? So the families come in about 10:15, 10:30 on Saturday morning.
Mhm.
How did the children on campus who are going to be involved know to come to the
The
group?
parents go to the cottage, pick their child up, come to the group session. So there's also a period of interaction with the house parents and with kids in the cottage before they come.
Now that's unique. So actually the parents and the cottage parents have some time to talk and get to know each other. Do you ever include the cottage parents in the family groups?
We're moving to that right now. I've got one of the cottage parent supervisors teaching with Becky the parenting skills class.
Wow.
And one of the express purposes for that is for him to see the motivation from a lot of these parents, the concern that is there with a lot of the parents. Because I think people come into child care work, direct child care work, because they want to help kids, they want to rescue kids. And they often feel that, how dare those people who did all this damage that I want to protect.
Right.
And the express purpose for starting to get them involved is so we will eventually change attitudes as they see this group of motivated parents.
So the biggest dinosaurs you have to overcome are attitudes.
Oh, yes.
Attitudes towards parents from house parents, attitudes towards house parents from parents, attitudes towards both from social workers and other staff, attitudes of the community. Who else? What other dinosaurs? Must be some others out there.
Well, other agencies, DSSs. Some of them don't want to trust reuniting a family. And we're in the process of learning with this too, but I think this is a win-win situation. You either successfully reunite the family, or in the process of doing the family work, you help the family and the child come to a more realistic appraisal of the limits of their family. Being able to acknowledge there's some love and bonding there, but living together is not going to work. Then they are more comfortable accepting this alternative, rather than being sentenced here or stuck away here. So it's win-win as far as I see it. You can't lose in doing it.
So the opportunity to help pull families back together exists, and the opportunity to help families separate exists as well.
Yes.
It's difficult when a child goes to a children's home and has no say or has no participation in the decision making. They simply have to adapt and survive. When the child can be a part of that decision making and help everybody come to some understanding that he or she is better off in a children's home rather than back home with mom, for example, then what you're saying is that the transition and the life of the child is better, and maybe even the life of the family is better.
The parents are more comfortable. They know you, they're comfortable with you, they know their child is safe, they feel free to interact with, and they don't feel stigmatized. And the child is comfortable in knowing this is what's better. And you don't get to that point if there hasn't been some family work.
And trust, and building intimacy.
Yeah. Because that's one of the things I try and stress with house parents. We can protect kids from abuse or neglect. You cannot protect them from a relationship. It's always there. It's always in their mind, moving towards some kind of resolution. And we have to give them some of that. And that family work does that.
Marianne Williamson, in her book, Return to Love, made the statement that relationships never die, they just change. And that kind of validates what you're saying, especially with kids and parents and families like that. Because the relationship never dies, it just changes. And if you can help it change in a positive way, in a healthier way, it's better for everyone all around.
And I sometimes don't think kids can have a future they move to with confidence or dreams they move towards till they've made some sense out of the past and the present in terms of their family relationships. So I think family work enables them to move on with their family or separate but with.
So in the group on Saturday morning, you've got the mom, for example, and a child who's in care here at Boys and Girls Home. And does the child ever have the opportunity to ask the mother, for example, what it's like not having he or she at home, or the mom asking the child what it's like not being at home, or do they have an opportunity to mutually share their hurt as well as their anger and resentments or whatever?
Oh, yes.
They have the opportunity to interact the way they do at home, or to, we check out to see if how they fight, for example. If they fight fairly with each other, or if they, in communication. In some cases, if a child or a parent, either one, cannot express themselves, we will use a method where we, alter ego or whatever, to bring that out.
Talk about alter ego. What do you mean by that?
Talk about it, John.
I think you just lateraled a little bit.
Okay. That's nothing more than if you're working with a family and you get a strong sense that there are some things there that are not being said, are powerful enough and close enough to be dealt with. So if they came out, they wouldn't just be denied or whatever. Then you let them out by moving in behind and speaking for the family member, keeping yourself out of the way so the person receiving is seeing the other person, but hearing words that you know are there. And it can jumpstart something that's there near the surface that's just being tiptoed or avoided, and it's a good one. Another thing that's neat about group is sometimes mom can't hear from her own son, but we've got another son here who's doing some sharing, who will speak directly to her about that, and she can hear. Some of the barriers, some of the filters aren't in there for this boy as for her own son. And you wouldn't get that in individual family work. And that's a neat part of working with families in that multiple family setting. And vice versa. One of the things we have to guard about, it's not uncommon for, we spend a lot of time empowering parents. I think most parents are coming feeling they have no power and they have no control. And no one in the system supports them. And a lot of what we do is trying to build their sense of competence and power. But we occasionally get some poor kid who's got suddenly 12 parents coming down on him instead of one. And you kind of have to watch that process so that it doesn't get too intense and too bad.
So there are periods of time when you have to modulate, and there's sometimes when you have to amplify.
Yes.
You're just doing some regulating there.
Sometimes that's good. Sometimes messages get in. He's getting it from lots of places and more than one parent because maybe you can hear better from. But sometimes also it gets into scapegoating. Or suddenly we've got a whole group of parents doing the same unhealthy interaction that they've been doing at home. And, we help them look at that.
So you would just make an intervention and refocus it?
It might be, kind of step back and process. Have them look at what's happening. Does this sound like old talk or new talk?
Mm-hmm.
Have you had these feelings before in interacting? What usually happens? Is this working for you? Or what's the normal outcome of this way of interacting?
That's the second technique that I've heard you mention that I learned from John T. Edwards. Old talk, new talk, alter ego or echo. Talk a little bit more about old talk and new talk and how that might be used in a multiple family therapy group session on a children's home campus.
Okay. Old talk is basically those kind of canned relationship patterns we get into, where we get stuck saying the same things and everyone's got in the earplugs and no one is listening to each other. They're just two talking heads going back and forth. What we try and do is have them talk on the same subject or topic area, but they can't say anything about it that they've said before or talk about it in the way they've talked before. Usually that means they have to do more listening, and usually that means they've got to tune more into feelings and come more from an I message point of view. Because usually what they'd be doing is lecturing each other or defending each other's position rather than listening to each other's position or sharing how they feel.
Or we might say that as a ground rule where, you must use I feel rather than you. Go ahead and communicate, but no one can use you messages. We have to use I feel messages. And that gets pretty difficult for some of them.
Reframing and refocusing at that point.
Mhm.
That's a good point. Now, there are 5 men sitting in this horseshoe here and 1 female. What's the difference in population, percentage-wise or number-wise, between males and females as children on campus? And what kind of female issues do you run into that might come up in multiple family therapy groups?
The ratio this almost represents the ratio on campus. We have our girls program up until last week had a maximum of 8 girls. We could house 8 girls in the Girls Haven Cottage. And a week ago we expanded to another cottage. Actually, we went to what was a guy's cottage, so that now we'll have a capacity of probably between 16 and 17 girls. Actually, the issues probably are not that much different in terms of parents and parental involvement, though you'll find a lot of times in group, when we have girls that are in group, and most of the girls' moms will be there. There's not that much of, there's usually an absence of a father figure where the girls are concerned. And if a mom is in the group, it's almost inevitable that there will just be a lot of physical affirmation between the mom and the daughter. There's just a lot of maybe more emotional types of stuff, but I think some of the hardcore issues are still very much the same. We have now one mom who's involved in a group she's one of those skeptical ones that you were talking about a few minutes ago, and just is not, she's very skeptical about group processes, about trust issues. And when she first came, she would not even join the group itself. She would sit behind the main group. Now, at this point, she's joining in terms of being in the circle.
How many months did it take her to get there?
About 3. And she's still not contributing verbally, but she's very much aware, and her antennas are up, and she's absorbing what's going on. And we're giving her space and giving her time. She hasn't gotten to the point where she's putting a name tag on. That's probably next month will be the suggestion to make some point of identification there. But I would say that the issues that the moms have for girls are pretty much the same as for the parents of the fellows over there.
So this mom who has been attending the group for 3 months now and has just moved into sitting in the circle, hasn't put on a name tag yet, and she's a brilliant skeptic type of lady who is really checking out everything. Yes. I'm sure that personality has had an impact on the daughter that's in care here.
Oh.
And of course, the question is, how did mom get to where she is? What happened in her life to get her character and her personality to this point? And how has that affected the daughter, who is simply dancing the dance of survival around mom and all that? And that presents situations for the children's home staff to deal with here. And of course, when you get all this into the multiple family therapy group, what do you find?
With this particular girl that we're talking about and her mom, she had, in one of our smaller groups, we meet with the kids weekly in smaller groups, and in this particular group, at one point a few months ago, I had the kids draw a family mapping. And one of the interesting things about the way this child drew the mother is that she drew herself in the circle, then she drew the mother totally around the circle that represented herself, and which just spoke volumes in terms of the mom actually becoming the conscience for this girl. You couldn't penetrate the child apart from the mom and the mom's reaction and interaction, and that has had impact in terms of her lack of communication in the group. I've spent right much time with the mom before, well, actually after group, and sometimes during lunches, and that gives time to build some bridges. I spend right much time with her, communicating with her on the phone, and she has become much more pliable in our dealing, much less skeptical, I think, in terms of she realizes that we're not out to separate her from her daughter, that she is as much a client as the daughter is, that our whole purpose is reunification and bringing mom and daughter together in a healthier relationship and not to do any severing. There are family secrets there that they're there and will have to be bridged. And as a matter of fact, just last week, the daughter shared a secret with the house mother that she has never shared with her mom before, and that is beginning to open the daughter up to building trust relationships with people who are on campus. And I think probably is maybe making the mother a little bit uneasy, a little bit uncomfortable, which will be an issue that will, when the time is right and we know relationships have been established, that we'll do it.
Well, systemically speaking, when you start bringing out those secrets, it unbalances the system, which puts the system in chaos, which means that probably things are going to get worse before they get better. How do you anticipate situations like that? And as a team, how do you work together?
At this point, not well enough.
Well,
If we're going to be honest about it.
Oh, yeah, it's important to be honest about all this, right?
I think we're still growing in our ability to work systemically and to take the risk in doing individual family work. And I think one of the issues with that is whether or not the institution supports us with a consultant in family work, which at this point in time hasn't happened. But I think we need to work better on doing that.
Well, the fact that you've got multiple family therapy groups taking place on campus tells me that your organization is way out ahead of most. And so there are a lot of nice things happening here. And my hunch is that you probably work together in a dance closer than maybe you're giving yourself credit for, because you're sitting in this room today talking with me like this and sharing. And of course, the next question I would ask is, what's it like for you as children's home staff, social workers? What's it like for you to be working on a children's home campus and working with children who are residents on your campus as well as their families, and you've got your families off campus and having a job and being an agent of the organization, and at the same time being an agent of the child and an agent of the family and working together as a team? How do you deal with that as staff?
I think probably the folks sitting here are the most honest with each other on this campus. I know that if I have a problem, I feel perfectly comfortable in going to any of these folks for help. I know that any feedback I get will be honest, non-judgmental. And I can't think of anyone else I'd rather work for than John Howe. I'm probably going to embarrass him, but
We allow red faces.
okay, good. But you know, I just, John's always been very fair and very honest and very open.
So the first thing I hear is that you're honest with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most important ingredient when it comes to team building. And the second thing I'm hearing you say is respect for your leader.
Mm-hmm. Very much. Very much. Well, Bill has 20 some odd years experience, and Jimmy has 13, I think it is, 14. They didn't teach Becky and I a lot in school about group homes, and that's a comment we've made to each other a lot, what they don't teach you in school. John brings other experience. So this has been incredible.
Yeah, and John also gives us permission, I think, to take care of ourselves and our families. And I really didn't feel that until he came. I used to put in the 100-hour weeks and wish I had more, you know, and that's not really fair to your families. It's not really fair to the children here if you're not going to stay healthy yourself. And he's really helped me a lot in that area.
So what you're saying, another point is that your supervisor let you know that it's important that you take care of yourself and your family and not spend all your time on the children's home campus, but to go out and have time with your family. So that you're working pretty close to 40 hours a week, or give and take some. And of course, if crisis comes up, I understand this is the nature of this business is a little different than others. But if you have a crisis at home too, you get support.
He's gonna understand, right?
Mhm.
He also gives you permission to do less than a totally, absolutely perfect job every time you do something. It gives you opportunity to grow. Even though I think John himself probably is more of a, probably a perfectionist.
Yes.
I think we've helped him quite a bit.
Right.